Joe Biden will be president of the United States for 42 more days. But within the Democratic Party, on Capitol Hill, and even within his administration, it feels like he left the Oval Office weeks ago. Biden has effectively disappeared from the radar after Democrats' bruising electoral loss. Since November 5, he's primarily stuck to prepared remarks, avoided unscripted public appearances or press questions, and sat out the raging debate over Donald Trump's victory, policy conversations in Congress, and the Democratic Party's future. He's been so cavalier and selfish about how he approaches the final weeks of the job, said a former White House official. Across nearly 2 weeks abroad since the election, Biden spoke just 7 words to the media traveling with him. He has yet to schedule a post-election press conference, as Presidents Barack Obama and George W. Bush did when they were leaving office. He went to the Rose Garden to publicly praise a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, met with Israeli President Isaac Herzog, and spoke to the press Sunday about Bashar al-Assad fleeing Syria. Still, otherwise, his post-election domestic schedule has been filled with events such as honoring the 2024 NBA champions, thanking longtime supporters at a South Lawn dinner, and participating in a Friendsgiving event. Biden's low profile since the election has contributed to the sense of rudderlessness that's taken hold across swaths of Washington as lawmakers, aides, and party officials brace for Trump's return to power and seek a new direction and vision ahead of the midterms in 2028. They say the White House and Biden have shown little interest in helping chart the party's future beyond Jan. 20, the day of Trump's inauguration. Biden has focused his aides' energies mainly on managing the presidential transition and tending to a few final items meant to burnish his legacy, including a speech on the economy Tuesday. And Vice President Kamala Harris, who cast herself on the campaign trail as the party's future, has all but disappeared from the scene. There is no leadership coming from the White House, one Democrat close to senior lawmakers stated bluntly. There is a total vacuum. Some Biden aides acknowledge the president's absence from the broader discussions about how to address Trump's coming presidency and the party's future. They say that reluctance is rooted in Biden's recognition that few are eager to hear from him and his lingering personal belief that he doesn't owe much more to a party that unceremoniously pushed him aside. Some aides have also said Biden believes he has to take a more measured approach when talking about Trump, given his focus on facilitating a peaceful power transfer. White House spokesperson Andrew Bates defended Biden, saying the president is making every day of this term count and is leading by example for the sake of American democracy, honoring his campaign promise to respect the will of the voters and provide an orderly transition. Bates noted that Biden, in an exchange with reporters last month, criticized President-elect Trump's agenda, including across-the-board tariffs that will force American families to pay higher prices for everyday necessities. During that brief back and forth, Biden called such tariffs counterproductive, but expressed hope that Trump would reconsider. Still, the void at the top has alarmed Democratic officials, who worry that the country is heading toward next year without a concrete plan for combating Trump, or even tangible motivation to put up much of a fight. Politico spoke to almost 24 party officials, lawmakers, current and former White House aides, and other Democratic staffers for this story, some of whom were granted anonymity to offer their candid assessment. Elections have consequences. It's a new sheriff in town, Sens. Peter Welch said. While Biden has offered little leadership, officials say there's also not much demand from the party's rank and file, including lawmakers and aides, to hear from a president they still blame for relegating them back into the minority. Biden, at 82, is at the end of a political career tarnished by his refusal to step aside earlier and a last-minute pardon of his son Hunter. Few are now clamoring for him to return. In conversations I'm having, they don't even mention the president. It's sad, said the Democrat close to senior lawmakers. It feels like Trump is president already. Many party officials and staffers no longer track Biden's daily activities or are even aware that he spent much of the last month out of the country. In the previous week, The dominant conversation among them tied to the president has been about Hunter's pardon, who got invitations to the White House holiday party, and whether current and former White House staffers would get to take the traditional departure photo with the president. Democrats in Washington just want to get him and the people around him out the door, said the former White House official. All he's done in the last year has hurt the party every step of the way. There are questions about whether Biden's presence has been missed, even if only to tout his accomplishments. Asked last week about the role they see Biden playing within the party, several Democratic lawmakers demurred. There's sort of a tradition of former presidents not getting too involved in it, and he's transitioning into that, said Reppy. Glenn Ivey, DMD. So, I think he has to be careful. Senator Chris Coons, D-Del, a close Biden friend and ally, said that he expected Biden to devote his post-presidency to several specific issues, including cancer research and global diplomacy, leaving his involvement in party affairs up in the air. I still think he has a lot for us to learn from going forward, Coons said. But, many other standard-bearers are clamoring for attention. Inside the West Wing, aides have focused on accelerating a final slate of policy priorities before January, including allocating billions of dollars in tech and infrastructure investments and further cementing regulations to safeguard consumers from bad corporate actors. Senior White House officials have also spent much of their time managing the nation's foreign entanglements in Ukraine and the Middle East ahead of an incoming administration that they worry will take both conflicts in a sharply different direction. Those efforts reflect a central agenda Biden laid out shortly after the election, aides said, and that has consumed much of his time in the weeks since. Biden aides have sought to more explicitly document the administration's accomplishments in statements, fact sheets, and video clips. That's partly a legacy project for historians who may comb Biden's presidential library in years to come. However, there is hope that it will provide Democrats with easy reference points during the Trump era to remind voters how life was under Biden and compare it with how key measures like inflation and health coverage have changed since then. Still, Biden officials and allies acknowledge that the president has been conspicuously absent from the broader public discourse, especially as the rest of the Democratic Party debates how best to resist Trump and rebuild the party. The silence from Biden is a case of just reading the room, said Caitlin Lagaki, a Democratic campaign veteran and a former senior advisor to Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo. If him speaking out doesn't achieve any strategic objectives, there's no real point in doing it, she said. Biden has avoided questions about what went wrong in the lead-up to the election and where Democrats should go from here. He has given no substantive public comments on whether he still believes American democracy is under threat and set to take power. Few expect him to endorse a candidate in the crowded race for DNC chair that could go a long way toward determining the party's direction. However, a Biden advisor said multiple people running for DNC chair have been in touch to ask for the president's thoughts. The advisor also said Biden was still playing an important role in discussions about the future of the party, which was a topic of conversation at a recent lunch he hosted with Mignon Moore, Donna Brazile, Leah Daughtry, Yolanda Caraway, and Tina Flournoy, Democratic operatives close to the Harris campaign. Typically, when you're in that so-called transition phase, the president and vice president essentially thank the team, the staff, and help pay off the debts. It's not like an incoming president who will play a more strategic role in determining the party's future, said Brazile, a former DNC chair. But Biden's overall attitude has left a sour taste in the mouth of some members of the party who feel his supporters who knocked on doors, donated money, and supported his administration deserve to hear from the president before he leaves office. It's just his strategy, even if folks agree or disagree with it. Kind of keeping his head down, said Mike Sarasso, an alum of Sen, Bernie Sanders, and Pete Buttigieg's campaigns. He and President Obama have looked at the transition period as not trying to make noise or undermine the incoming administration. Some Democrats also believe that however politically diminished the president may be, Biden still has had a significant public role in his last few weeks in office. It would be great to be talking about the things that were accomplished under the Biden term, and so many things that we got done for the country in terms of the infrastructure, clean air, clean water, addressing climate, said Reppy Annie Custer, DNH. We haven't gotten that message out strongly enough before the election, but he shouldn't miss the opportunity to talk about that now.